Ever been fined by your HOA for something so small you thought it was a joke? Well, imagine getting hit with a $500 fine, and then using the law to flip the script completely. If you've ever dealt with HOA drama, you'll feel this. 1. My name's David, and I live in a clean, quiet neighborhood nestled near the edge of a lake in northern Georgia. I'm not a confrontational guy. I'm a real estate lawyer. I know the law. I respect the rules. I even helped write some of the housing clauses for neighboring developments. So believe me when I say I follow the book, but none of that mattered to Karen, HOA Karen, as my neighbors and I eventually called her, had just been voted president of our small homeowners association. She took the position with the kind of energy you usually reserve for war generals, not neighborhood flower bed patrol. Now, I kept a tidy home. Lawn trimmed, mailbox straight, no wild Halloween decorations or Christmas lights still up in April. My house was boring, even by HOA standards. So when I got a letter saying I was being fined $500 for a landscaping violation, I thought it had been misdelivered. Nope. My name was right there, typed in bold. David Hartman, property violation, unauthorized planting. What unauthorized planting? I walked outside, scanned the lawn, and saw it. A small lavender bush my wife had planted by the mailbox. A bush. It wasn't dead. It wasn't invasive. It wasn't even touching the sidewalk. But according to the violation note, it was non-compliant with HOA Section 8.4.1, Uniform Landscaping Standards. I shook my head. This had to be a mistake. I called the HOA office. Guess who answered? HOA office, this is Karen speaking. Of course, I explained everything calmly. Told her I didn't recall anything in Section 8.4, one that restricted lavender. And I offered to remove the bush if needed. I wasn't trying to stir anything, but she didn't budge. In fact, she doubled down. David, we're cracking down on all infractions. It's about consistency. If you get to have lavender, then everyone will want to. That's not the look we're going for. What look were we going for? Concrete? I knew the clause. It required homeowners to maintain a consistent visual standard, but there was no plant list, no visual guide, no enforcement protocol. It was vague, dangerously vague, and that's exactly the kind of clause that gets abused. Still, I was curious. I started walking the neighborhood and taking notes. 6 homes had roses, 4 had tall ornamental grass. 2 had ivy literally crawling up their fences. No fines. I checked with those neighbors. None had received a single warning or notice. But me? A single lavender bush got me $500 deep? That's when I realized this wasn't about rules. This was about control. And unfortunately for Karen. I read contracts for fun. I pulled the HOA's governing documents, Section 8.4.1, as I thought, vague, unenforceable in court, and missing a key element, a clearly defined plant list approved by a majority vote, which meant her fine, legally worthless. So I decided to test something. I drafted a formal letter of appeal, citing inconsistencies in enforcement, lack of objective criteria, and failure to follow due process under Article 12 of the HOA bylaws. Emailed it in and CC'd the entire HOA board. 2 days later I got a reply, not from Karen, but from one of the board members, Jerry. David, we received your appeal. Frankly, I wasn't aware of any of this. We'll be reviewing your claims at the next HOA meeting. That meeting was where it all changed. Karen started it like usual, loud and confident. We're here to address violation 248, issued to Mr. Hartman regarding his unauthorized landscaping. I raised my hand. Point of order. Before you proceed, I'd like to distribute some documents to the board. I handed out printed copies of my appeal and relevant legal annotations. As they flipped through, Karen's face started to tighten. One board member, a retired judge, leaned forward. Karen, Did the board ever vote on an approved plant list? Karen stammered. Well, it was more of a general guideline. No vote? He pressed. No. But you assumed wrong, he said. Then he looked at me. Double quotes, Mr. Hartman, your fine is rescinded. We'll review this policy and amend it if needed. Thank you for your due diligence. Karen's face turned red. I thought she was about to scream, but it didn't stop there. A week later, I got a knock at my door. It was Jerry. He said, David, I just want to say thank you. After that meeting, several neighbors came forward about similar fines that didn't make sense. We're doing a full audit. Turns out, Karen had issued over $4,000 in fines since becoming president, many of which were never approved by the board. 2 weeks later, the board held a special vote. Karen was removed from her position. Her replacement? Jerry, the man who came to thank me. And here's the real twist. A few days later, I got a letter, not from the HOA this time, but from Karen herself. It read, David, you embarrassed me in front of the whole board. I was only trying to maintain standards. You didn't have to go nuclear. You're a lawyer, and you used it against me. I hope you're happy. I was, because I didn't do it for revenge. I did it because rules without fairness are just control in disguise. And if you've ever felt steamrolled by an HOA, you're not alone. In fact, let me know in the comments. Have you ever been fined unfairly by your HOA? What did you do about it?